maybe we should just kind of walk through at a high level the contents of the book, and just so the organization of the book is, again, it's really DTrace by example first and foremost. So we have to introduce you to DTrace and introduce you to the language. Even though you can get that information off the wiki page, we kind of put a somewhat different spin on it. We explain a few things in different ways and maybe cover it slightly differently than the existing documentation. And then from there, we started thinking about how we tend to use DTrace day to day when we use it. So that spawned a chapter we call System View, which is, okay, I'm taking a look at the big system for the first time. How do I apply DTrace to this? Where do I start? That big, how do I begin question that, students that we teach DTrace to ask all the time. And so the System View is going to get you through, basically that, where to start point. And then from there, chapters that have real meaning in terms of the subsystems people look at with DTrace. There's disk I/O, there's file systems, there's network decomposed by protocol. There's a chapter that's going to cover using DTrace for specific languages like Java, JavaScript, Perl, PHP, what have you. Certain applications are broad enough in terms of their deployment that they warrant a chapter on their own, like app servers, web servers, that kind of thing. Databases, pretty important topic.
File systems.
File systems, very important topic. So we've decomposed it in a way that makes intuitive sense, hopefully makes intuitive sense to the readers, such that once they get past the introductory level material and they say, well, okay, I'm looking at a database problem, I can go to a database chapter, or I think I've got a network problem, I'm going to go to the network chapter.
A lot of these chapters, the way we came up with the chapter list wasn't, to make it clear, this wasn't what scripts exist out there and let's compile them together.
Exactly.
We started with a clean plate and said, ideally, which chapters would we have? We want coverage on file systems, all the common file systems in use, protocols, and there's a lot of protocols. The network chapter is getting huge because of NFS and CIFS and so on, and fiber channel and so on. And map out everything of interest. Since DTrace has a huge observability, that's a lot of stuff.
Right.
We set ourselves this high bar, because this is ideally what a book should cover.
Right.
And we've been going through and filling in all the gaps. It's taken me out of my comfort zone. It's forced me to do SATA DTrace scripts and SCSI DTrace scripts and all sorts of things I hadn't done before. They're really useful. I'm now reusing those scripts, especially looking at error counts at different layers that you don't normally have observability into, latency at different layers you don't normally have observability into. Yeah. But anyway, that's how the chapters came about. We thought about, ideally, what would be complete coverage of all different topics? And DTrace lets us explore that. It's a lot of work for us to put together, but
and as we've been working on it, and this happens whenever you work on a project like this, we've had ideas to grow it even more. We've been talking about a kernel chapter, we've been talking about a security chapter. So you need to be aware of scope creep, right? And the fact that, well, we could keep generating ideas and generating scripts, and we could continue doing this for the next 3 years and end up never publishing the thing. So at some point you have to put a stake in the ground and say, okay, let's, this is going to be really useful. There's a lot of people who are going to get a lot of use out of this work. Let's let's wrap it up and ship it. So
yeah, and especially because a lot of the scripts that we're putting in there give you visibility, and this is also based on our performance background of what helps troubleshooting issues. So primarily you'll see what load is happening at different levels for different protocols, different layers. Just the act of seeing what types of operations are happening and their sizes can solve a lot of problems if you've got no visibility into that layer. Just looking at the types, frequency counting the type of operations or their arguments. Then there's latency at different layers, and then errors at different layers. And for each of these different areas that we've got, I try to start with at least that. I want to look at the load, what this layer is doing, the latency for IOPS, and also any errors it's generating, because a lot of errors get consumed by the system and you don't see them as the end user. DTrace can dig them out, which is really cool. Yeah,
that's a good point. Much of the book is organized in sort of a very drill down approach. Starting at the top layer and then incrementally fine-tuning your DTrace as you hone in on the thing of interest, on the event of interest or the metric or the performance item of interest. It's all very drilled down, which is the way to approach any any system problem, whether it's a performance problem or a capacity question or what have you.
Yep, but yeah, the scripts are not random scripts in there because it's cool to see different areas. It's showing you how to DTrace certain areas, but then also there's a lot of thought put into coming up with the most useful scripts. In fact, the measure of a good book is not what you put in it, but what you don't put in it, what you cut out.
Yeah, what you keep out.
I've created a lot of scripts that it's like, the script's really cool, but it's not actually that useful to anyone, so I'm not going to include it and waste the pages.
Yeah.
The book's getting pretty full of really useful scripts you can just use straight away and solve a bunch of problems.
Yeah.
So.
And what we're going to do at publication time is make those scripts downloadable.
Yeah.
So there'll be several locations on the internet where people can just go get the scripts and download them, so they don't have to. Because you don't want to type in, like, there's a lot of several Brendan's scripts span multiple pages, and you don't want to have to type those in by hand. So they'll all be downloadable and accessible.
It's also a relief for some of the chapters as well. Some of the scripts I've written, which are really popular, include IOSnoop and also
TCP Snoop.
TCP Snoop. Alec Moffat, a security guy, actually described on his blog IOSnoop as one of the most useful commands in Mac OS X. It was very flattering.
That's right, yeah.
These two very popular tools, and one thing I've done in the book is I've gone through them line by line and explained exactly how they work. The TCP Snoop in particular script is really complex because it goes into the heart of the kernel internals.
Right.
So you don't actually have to read that stuff and understand it, but it's there for reference in case people are interested. So we appeal to different audiences. There's stuff in there, if you just want some cookbook scripts to apply and solve issues, you've got them.
Right.
But if you want to understand them in more details, it goes right down to explaining line by
line what the
how these
scripts
scripts work. And we've talked a lot about scripts, but something that's really making me sweat about creating this book is including strategy. And at the start of each chapter, we have a guide on strategy. These are the useful things you can look for protocols, for file systems, for disks. We're not just giving you a collection of scripts. We want to, we're not just giving you fish, we're teaching you how to fish. We want you to learn how to roll your own and what sort of thought process we go through for these different areas.
Yeah. But by definition, you have to do that, right? You couldn't write a book on the C programming language without at least teaching a little bit about programming.
Yep.
And so you can't write a book about DTrace because DTrace by definition is a tool. It's largely a performance tool, but it's a tool for other things as well. And so you can't talk about using DTrace without talking about methodology to some extent.
Yeah. So calling it a cookbook is correct because it's got a bunch of scripts you can use straight away, but it's also a DTrace course that will train you how to roll your own custom scripts. And because we do put a lot of thought into, sometimes it takes me longer to write that strategy section than to write 20 pages worth of scripts. Because I want to make sure I'm helping people understand the thought process. Because one of the most common problems we have with DTrace is people say, I don't know where to start.
Right.
DTrace lets me look at everything. So we really want to help people.
Pay a lot of attention to that question in every aspect in every chapter. Absolutely.